A very good day, and thanks for clicking on to the Saturday, the 10th of November edition of Vogan's European Outlook. Hope everybody is well. We are going to see a higher pressure building in during a brief spell overnight Friday into Saturday, and that will settle things down. Cold night to come, thanks to the clear skies and light winds. Now, I'm saying a cold night to come because, of course, the time difference here between Tokyo and London is 9 hours, so I'm a little bit. I'm recording this, 9 hours ahead of what you're going to see on the channel, of course. But you can see areas of low pressure continuing to move in from the west. That main dominant area of low pressure is feeding systems into the UK and Ireland from the west. But there is an overall pattern shift compared to what we've seen in recent weeks, of course. And as we move through Sunday, we've got the next feature moving in off the west and off the Atlantic here. And then as we move towards the early and middle portion of next week, we continue to see the disturbed weather moving in off the Atlantic here. And as we push towards the very end of the loop here, you can see that we may start to see a little bit of a push back thanks to higher pressure over the continent. But it looks as if the main dominant player will continue to be the Atlantic. Looking at the Arctic oscillation, interesting to see how it goes positive, then it goes back towards neutral once again. NAO firmly neutral at the moment. Looking at the CFSV2, this is the 500 millibar geopotential heights, and of course week one we've got the trough over Greenland, Iceland, North Atlantic region over Europe here. Positive NAO pattern remains in place. This is in fact looking at the month of December. I do apologize, I was thinking that this was the weeklies. So this is the month of December of the CFSV2. Then as you can see here, we look at the month of January. Again, a positive NAO signal region over southwest Europe. We've got the negative to the northwest of the British Isles. That would certainly remain a firmly mild Atlantic-driven pattern through the middle portion of the winter season. Then as we move into the month of February, no great change. The CFSV2 very much on board with a mild and potentially unsettled theme. If that higher pressure was to be a little bit closer to the UK and Ireland, we could have a mild but also drier setup. Notice here the interesting shift towards the negative NAO signal, North Atlantic, north up towards Greenland and into the Arctic. That is a negative Arctic oscillation, North Atlantic oscillation signal as we move towards the very end of the winter season. Now let's have a look, as promised, at some of the other longer range charts here with regards to the pattern coming up here. This is off the C3S, and this is the DWD, which is the German model. This is for the month of December, and you can see here that we have got the negative close to the UK and Ireland here, but we do have a bit of a west-based negative NAO signal. Looking at the month of January, you can see here that we do have a southward displaced jet here. We've got the trough extending over the eastern United States here and also to the southwest of the UK and Ireland. That is a very interesting northerly blocked type signal for the month of January. And then into the month of February, we increase the blocking and we have got a bit of a shutdown of the Atlantic. If you notice here, we extend these above average heights from Greenland all the way south over the Atlantic. That shuts the door to mild westerly winds coming in, and we've got quite the trough over Europe here. So this would certainly be an interesting signal here for the February time frame. But even looking back, like I said, January, we do have a negative NAO and AO signal here with the potential of cold spells. And like I said, the block increases in strength both in February and March. So certainly the DWD model is indicating some very interesting aspects here as we go forward. This here is the CMCC contribution here. So this is looking at the whole winter season, December through February. And you can see here, albeit that we do have above average heights across the UK and Ireland, notice here that we have got quite a strong positive up across the Baffin Straits, Eastern Canada and Greenland here. This would also be representative of a negative NAO pattern here. So again, another model, CMCC, for the whole winter season, indicating somewhat of a negative NAO and AO signal, which is, like I say, rather. Moving on to the ECCC model, which is for the month of December, and you can see here that we've got the negative here to the west of the UK and Ireland. That would certainly indicate more of an unsettled Atlantic-driven setup for the month of December. Looking at January, like other models, indicating the negative, the block up towards Greenland, Iceland, and the North Atlantic, a southward displaced storm track indicating cold but potentially also stormy as well. Looking at the month of February, we increase that block both over and to the north of the Ural Mountains, extending over the top through the Norwegian Sea and across to Greenland and northern portions of the North Atlantic here. Again, southward displaced jet stream, potentially cold and stormy. Looking at the month of February, or March, should I say, we're also seeing that block increase further south over the North Atlantic, shutting down the Atlantic itself, and we do lock in that negative over the UK and Ireland here. So certainly quite a few models indicating with the all-important November solutions, which of course is the final model output before we finally get into the December through February period. Very interesting how quite a few of the models are indicating a negative NAO winter coming up, or certainly the middle and second half. Not so much perhaps in December, but moving into the January, February, March time frame, it looks as if there is quite a lot of model consensus indicating that we have got quite a negative over and to the northwest of the British Isles here, which certainly for cold weather lovers, this is certainly worth grabbing a hold of course. Before we look at the stratospheric situation as we go forward, let's have a look at the all-important latest run, the November output of the ECMWF. This is upcoming month, December 2023, and you can see here that we have got somewhat of a positive NAO for the month of December. Lower pressure between the UK, Iceland, and up towards the southeast shores of Greenland here, representative of a trough to the northwest, higher pressure to the south, and winds coming in off the Atlantic. But all very interesting as we move into the month of January. We've got more of a negative NAO pattern. Once again, we've got that block to the west and northwest of the UK, shuts down the Atlantic door, and the potential is there for a trough over or near the UK and Ireland here, representative of a fairly cold pattern. Moving into the month of February, we can still see that negative up towards Greenland. Nothing particularly strong, but certainly this would indicate more of a southward displaced storm track. And then looking at March, like a lot of other models here, indicating the positive up to the west of the UK and up towards Greenland here. So that is certainly very, very interesting stuff indeed. Let's have a look and see what the latest output is of the 10 HPA mean zonal winds within the polar stratosphere here. Do we continue to see that shutdown, that deceleration of these winds circling the polar vortex? You can see here, this is the latest output. So this is for Friday, the 10th of November, which of course is yesterday. Continue to see this stronger than normal mean zonal winds, representative of a stronger and colder polar vortex. Then we start to see a slowdown in the winds, and then as we move towards the early and middle portion of December, it looks as if we go below average in terms of the mean zonal wind speeds here. Now it's interesting I've just showed you several models, long range output indicating the block increases mid and late winter, and certainly if this was anything to come to hold true, and you see a lot of members indicating the potential for a real rapid slowdown and even potentially a reversal in the mean zonal winds from west to easterly as we move towards the middle portion of December. That would represent the potential of a major southern stratospheric warming, and it would coincide with a lot of the models indicating increased block over the North Atlantic and up towards Greenland mid and second half of winter. So this is a very interesting situation developing here as we go towards the final couple of weeks of meteorological autumn, and we eventually move into winter itself. Looking at the current 10 HPA temperature profile here over the Arctic region for Friday the 10th of November, you can see here a fairly strong, robust polar vortex centered almost over the axis region here. As we play through the loop, you can see here that it remains fairly strong in nature. You don't see anything particularly warm coming in off any of the surrounding continents here. Maybe a little bit of subtle warming taking place over the Siberia side of the pole. Notice here that as we move towards the latter stages of November, we do have a little bit of a displacement of the PV, maybe some of the colder temperatures at minus 82 Celsius pushing towards Scandinavia and the UK. This, to me, folks, would represent an increase in positive NAO signal and more troughiness between the UK and up towards Greenland here. As we continue to push forward and see here at the very, very end of the loop, we have got a little bit of a signal for more of a stronger warming taking place over Siberia. Speaking of that warming over Siberia, let's finally look at the ECMWF 10 millibar temperature profile, the weeklies. Okay, so this is the very latest run here of the model. So this is the ECMWF weeklies for the 10 millibar temperature anomaly here. So this is the anomaly, remember. You can see here fairly strong warming at the moment here across the North Atlantic and Greenland here. As we move through the sequence, if it's going to update, that is, because the internet sometimes can be a little bit patchy here in the hotel. Is it going to upload before I close off this video? Now, notice here, this is the period between 27th of November, 4th of December. We're starting to see warming taking place here over the mid to high latitude region. And even as we move towards the period 4th through 11th of December, interesting to see this warming showing up here to the north of the UK and Ireland here, extending from Iceland all the way across to Scandinavia, also over eastern portions of Russia and extending into the North America side of the Arctic region. As we continue to go forward, isn't that certainly very interesting to see some of that really strong warming, the anomalous warmth to the north across the majority of the polar region here. This would certainly be something that we really need to pay attention to based on what I showed you with the models, as well as this here coinciding quite nicely indeed. So certainly based on what we're seeing, the low MEI, the strong sea surface temperature profile representative of the strong El Nino, we are going to start to see a weakening of the positive IOD. That may dictate the first half of the winter, but as it weakens, do we start to see a less strong influence of that positive IOD? That is going to be the big question here. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video here. I will have a global weather report hopefully at some point tomorrow, as per usual on a Sunday, and there will be more content to come in the upcoming week ahead. So enjoy the rest of your, what day is it, Saturday, and I'll see you again hopefully tomorrow with more. Bye.